Hello, everyone, and welcome to Financial Policy Council panel discussion on leading during uncertainty. Take command of your business and life. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Hiba Oseiran. I currently serve as the Executive Director of Financial Policy Council. Sorry, 1 second to admit. Okay. I will facilitate this discussion with leading experts in the field. The webinar will be moderated by Mr. Ziad Abdenour. Mr. Abdenour is the CEO of Blackhawk Partners and Chairman and Founder of the Financial Policy Council. This Wharton graduate is a radical Wall Street financier, deal maker, best-selling author, public speaker, and activist who has over 30 years experience on Wall Street backing over 125 companies and serial entrepreneurs, worth in aggregate over $20 billion in the private equity, high-yield bond, and distressed debt markets. Abdenour was recently recognized as one of the top 10 disruptors to watch out for in 2023 by LA Weekly. I would like also to welcome our distinguished panelists who will be sharing their expertise in the field. Joe Hart, Alicia Hanf, Dame Shelley Hunt, and Adi Segal. We have a lot to cover, so let's give our full attention to our panelists, and I would like to remind you to keep your microphones muted, please. Feel free to submit your questions in the chat box, and our panelists will answer as soon as we start the Q&A segment. Please keep your questions concise and in line with the webinar topic. This allows us to cover as many questions as possible. Join me in welcoming Mr. Ziad Abdenour to the stage. Ziad, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Hiba. Thank you. Welcome all to our first webinar of the year. We're going to have half a dozen webinars this year, along with also half a dozen physical events, live events, starting in June at the Penn Club in New York City. You're all welcome to join that too. Leadership, that's the topic. How do you really, I'm going to give you my 2 cents on that and then leave it up to the panelists. I have a few questions for the panelists. And of course, you will have the opportunity to ask them questions too. It's a very open debate here. And we take everybody's comments and questions seriously. So leadership, I believe that circumstances create leaders. I strongly believe that. Yes, you have born leaders, but the best leaders emerge upon very difficult circumstances and how they handle it, how they manage and navigate through those circumstances, whether on the political side, the business side, everywhere. All these great people who became true leaders emerged because it was very tough times. Today, we're dealing with maybe one of the most challenging times in our country's history, ever. And we see what kind of leadership we have. I'm not going to go into politics, but it's obvious to everyone how things are handled today. And that's very sad and very bad. We have here 4 panelists who know a lot about leadership, have experienced it. They are in the trenches. They are not just academics or theoreticians, because we don't really believe in that. We believe in people who have live experiences dealing with all those topics that we cover. I would like to start with Joe Hart. Joe, what does it really mean to take command during times of uncertainty? I mean, what's the Dale Carnegie perspective on this? I'm sure you're the founder of that organization, and you have a lot of experience dealing with that. like to start with Joe.
Thank you, Ziad. And wonderful to be with everyone. And maybe just even 30 seconds of background about for people who aren't familiar with Dale Carnegie. Our organization is 110 years old. We were founded by Dale Carnegie. We are 200 operations in 86 countries. And we are the oldest leadership company, I think, in the world that does what we do. So we have a global perspective. And I also think, Ziad, your comment about leadership, both the crisis of leadership is exactly true, as is the opportunity that leaders have to really rise in a crisis. And certainly we've seen great examples of many leaders who've done that. But, taking command for us, and maybe just even to go back, leadership, to us is about working together with others to bring out the best in other people to accomplish things that you could not do by yourselves. It's about working together and seeing the greatness in other people. Taking command means that we are intentional of what we do. Often part of the crisis of leadership is people who fail to take responsibility. They blame other people. But leaders, and this is something we teach in Dale Carnegie, are those who take 100% responsibility for making things happen. So taking command is being intentional. And really the three areas that we have to take command in as leaders, first with ourselves. We've got to take command of our own thoughts and emotions and our integrity so that we are able to lead with confidence and courage, as opposed to insecurity or something else, and to also operate from a place of values. Part of the crisis, I think, that Ziad is talking about is, leaders who often fail to act with integrity and fail to act in a way, that believes in the best that others can bring. The second part is taking command of our relationships. We can't accomplish anything as leaders if we're not effective at how we work with other people. How do we build relationships? How do we deal with difficult people? How do we certainly get the results that we want? And we can't do that if we're ineffective at working with other people. And certainly all of us have seen teams or groups of people where people are difficult. They can't get along with other people and they can't get results. And the third part is taking command of our future and our vision. What is our vision? Leaders are people who are clear about where they need to go, and they're able to articulate that vision to other people and to inspire other people to achieve things that maybe they didn't think were possible on their own. So again, I think these times are the most complex, challenging I've ever seen for leaders. They are also a time of just incredible opportunity for leaders to shine. I'll just say one thing. I think if we look back at COVID, there were times that many of us were challenged and certainly fearful. And at the same time, some of the greatest leaders that I've seen have come out of that. They have led with confidence and not cowardice. So that's really the opportunity, I think, for all of us moving forward.
I thank you for your feedback, Joe. And I'd like to add a few things here to what Joe said and then go forward. I really think the true leader creates leaders, not followers. This is the key. A lot of people, a lot of leaders, forget that. It's not a question, there is the cult of the personality. They're seeking the cult of the personality. I am the smartest, I am the richest, I am the biggest, look at me, listen to me, me. These are the failed leaders. Look at history. All the biggest leaders never focused on themselves, never bragged about themselves. As they say, the best bragging is when people brag about you, not when you brag about yourself. That's true leadership. A second point, this is from my experience as a business guy, is leaders create teams. Teams win. This cult of the personality, again, that you're the smartest and you can do everything on your own and you don't need anybody, is wrong. These kind of leaders fail. They do not succeed. These are two very important points that a lot of people fail to understand, grasp, or execute. Having said that, I'd like to ask Joe. Joe, can you please share with us an example of when you were pushed to live these principles, Dale Carnegie, out for yourself?
Sure. The most, I think, significant one for me, Ziad, was, in COVID. So our company in January 2020, 95% of our business was in-person classes. We put on programs for people. So when we were I was on a Zoom with our team in China in January 2020, hearing about them going into lockdown, and then, not being able to deliver any programs. And then it happened clearly throughout Asia, and then our European teams, North America, Middle East, Africa, et cetera. So there was a period of time in March 2020 where, as the leader of this global organization, I'm just going to tell you, I was waking up every night at 3 o'clock in the morning, just thinking about the worst, thinking about, oh my gosh, how do I make sure that we don't go to business? And one night I woke up and I looked at a quote from Dale Carnegie, and I think I knew better because I knew all of these things that we believed, but I think in that moment, when you're in a crisis, you can forget that. But the quote that I saw, Ziad, was Dale Carnegie talking about the most important lesson he ever learned was the value of what we think. If I know what you think, I know who you are. And our lives are what our thoughts make it. And so in that moment, I decided to start to look at COVID not as a crisis, but as an opportunity. And I reached out to our teams about how we could accelerate our digital transformation as a business. We certified about 1,000 trainers around the world in 4 months to be able to deliver dynamic, interactive online programs. And frankly, our entire business today is so much different than it was at the beginning of COVID because of our teams around the world who were open-minded and who really took command. So today, our company has come back. We're stronger, more competitive, more agile than we've ever been. And I just think so much of that has to do with the way that I think and act as a leader and inspire other people. And I remember just one last thing. I don't want to speak too long, but I remember thinking about, in the moment, years from now, how do I want to look at how I'm leading? Do I want to look back and see cowardice, or do I want to see courage? And, I'm standing in some great shoes of prior leaders. So, I really started for myself every single day, taking command and working with our teams to inspire them to do that. But it really was, as you said, Azia, the team. It's the team that really stepped up around the world and made all that happen. So thank you for the question.
Of course, and it's remarkable what you've built globally with your team and your trainers all over the world. That's absolutely remarkable. I fully support all what you're doing. We fully support. I'd like to move to Dame Shelley. How are you doing today?
I am good. I lost you for a minute. It's another blessed day on planet Earth. I am well. Thank you.
I love your attitude. Okay, let me ask you a question. It's obvious that you've experienced several economic cycles, and you've really kicked ass in each one of them. I can see that. I've been following you. What have you learned, Shelley, to help you thrive regardless of what life is throwing at you?
Well, I'll tell you, you're right. I definitely have, had some up and downs, and I've seen the economy and global economy, not just in the United States, but around the world, go up and down. And, I'm going to kind of tag on a little bit of what was just said, which is, when COVID hit, it was very interesting. My executive director decided she was going to step down. I laid in bed too. So I'm sure a few of us did, wondering where this was leading and, how was this going to work? And especially most of our events and our social impact and our educational programs were live in person. And, it was very interesting. So the first thing I did was I laid in bed awake for a while, wondering how I was going to redo this. And, how am I, is the company's going to fail? How's this going to work? And I decided I actually just kind of released and let go. And, I know that what I concentrate on manifests. I honestly believe that. It's what I live. And I, had my fears and my doubts and all these things. And, change is inevitable. Change is part of just being alive and being human on this planet. And so I really went into my attitude. And I looked at my attitude every morning. And every morning I got up, I got dressed just like this. And people were in their sweats and they were like, I don't understand. And I said, because I'm going to keep going. I'm determined I'm going to keep going. And, when my executive director had stepped down, and of course, it was right as COVID hit, what I found was how I was brought people to the party. And the next thing I knew, we were opening up Philippines and Singapore and other areas. I believe that in the downturns of the economy, that there's opportunity to be had. It's kind of like the internet boom, right? Like now there's all these apps, and it's that creative space of, I know that the bigger, if there's a service that I need, let me put it this way, if there's a service that I need, I know somebody else needs it too. And how do I facilitate that service getting to them? So we turned a lot of our stuff onto online. But I believe goes back to attitude. I know that to think is to create. I know that how I approach every day, please let me hear and respond with less lag time. Now, I know in business, you dot the I's and you cross the T's, but, what brings people together? What brings the team together? The energy, and the vibrance of it. People don't want to follow a stagnant ball. They want to follow things that are moving, that are growing, that are becoming. And so, I think for me, part of it was definitely seeing opportunity and my attitude with things and saying, okay, it's another change. Here we go.
It's right on the money. I totally relate to what you're saying. It's all about attitude, the right energy. It's contagious. It's everything. So having said that, I totally agree. When was the lowest? Who was that?
Yeah, it's hard to hear you.
There's somebody speaking. You put your mute or your phone. Okay, Shelley. So when was the lowest point in your life?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you yet.
There's Tim Murphy.
Tim Murphy, mute your microphone. Thank you.
Thanks.
I like that. There's people here. I love it. Okay, we're back to Shelley. So when was one of the lowest points in your life and how did you deal with it?
I think one of the lowest points in my life, it was very interesting because it was right after COVID. I'd lost my mother. I lost my father figure, Bob Proctor. I lost mentors and some friends. I literally had 6 biggest losses in my life. And then we're in the middle of COVID and, company transitions. And I remembered that it's about the journey. It's not just about the destination. And that, somebody said something about team, and I think it's so important, that people win. And I had to remember my lane. Where do I win and what's my lane in life and in my expertise and in those around me? And, I think a team is imperative, totally imperative. And I know that for me, at the lowest point, my team made a difference because they looked at me and said, and this is why I love having good people around you. They thought, anybody that goes, you're a cooler invention than popcorn and peanut butter, like you're just it. So when I have my doubts, which I did, and I was in a lot of grief, they looked at me and said, you got this. It's okay. And I gave myself permission to be wherever I was at. Which was really a big thing for me because I'm a mover, I'm a shaker, and I'm a doer. And there were times where it didn't feel like I was doing enough and I was producing enough. But I definitely looked at it and went, it's the journey, and I'm going to come out better for this. And I did.
Brilliant. Brilliant. You know what they say? They say you become the average of the 6 people closest to you. And I'm sure Joe knows this also very well. That's pretty much it. So I tend to surround myself with people who are really at least as successful, if not more successful, as wise, if not more, if not wiser, as aggressive, if not more aggressive. This is what turns me on all the time, because I'm always seeking perfection. You never get to perfection, but you get to excellence. There's a fine line between excellence and perfection, and this is what you see. I appreciate your feedback, Dave. I'm sure there are going to be more questions, but I'd like to move to the next panelist, to Alicia Hunt. Hi, Alicia, how are you? Where are you? Ah, here you are. You're next to me. I just realized that.
Hi.
Hi, Alicia, how are you? Good.
I'm great. How are you?
You served in the military, very impressive, and have talked about the principle of last known point. How is that relevant to facing uncertainty? Could you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, of course. And I think so many people have said so many wonderful things already about, what it takes to build teams and leading in times of uncertainty and going back to your values. And that's certainly what the principle of last known point is. So last known point, for those of you who might not know, is a military land navigation term. And it's a principle that's used to help you get unlost when you are lost. So traditionally, it's used by soldiers who are out in the field. And I've taken that and adopted it to how I navigate loss, life, trauma, business, all of the above. And so the principle of last known point is when you are lost in the woods or in life, as most of us often find ourselves saying, I am so lost, how did I get here? Instead of running faster potentially and keep going in the wrong direction, in the military, you potentially try to take shortcuts to get to your point that you're trying to get to. In life, that often looks like comparing ourselves to others. Maybe it's working harder, buying something we shouldn't be buying. It's doing all of these things. But what the principle describes is going back to that last place you remember being found and replotting your course and trying again. And so what this looks like in practical life is often a values conversation. Oftentimes when we find ourselves saying, how the heck did we get here? It's because we've gotten off of our path and gotten away from our core values and what we are doing. And so the speaker that just came before me said, she was facing all of this loss in her life and said, what is my lane? What is that one thing that I'm really good at? And what is that path? And that's exactly what last known point is. And so I used it to navigate. I lost my mother also very tragically to domestic violence in the midst of launching my career, and found myself feeling the most lost I've ever felt in my life. And for me, how I navigated that was going back to the last place I felt like myself, understanding what my true core values are, understanding the direction I wanted to go in life, and then recalibrating everything that I was doing to get back on that track.
That's a lot of soul searching. I like how the military thinks. Everything is structured, discipline, and going back to that. That's very interesting. Thank you for your feedback. I'd like to move to Adi. Adi, where are you? Here you are. Okay. Adi, what are you currently doing to empower people through uncertainty? We're facing a lot of very uncertain, crazy times here. How do you get them off the floor? How do you move that? What?
Yeah, thank you, Ziad. And I'll give my perspective by first saying who I am so people understand. My name is Adi Siegel, and I am the CEO of Happy, as you can probably see behind me. And we are a listening company. So we offer both a listening academy for businesses, and we also offer active listening as a service through our app. And I'll start with what Joe said, quite frankly, which is intentionality. Everything that you do to get back from uncertainty has to start with intentionality, and also based off of Ziad, what you were saying, and Dame and Alicia, whether it's last known point or really just having the right attitude. I bet what everyone didn't say, but what they were doing was listening well, listening to yourself, listening to your surroundings, whether that's other people in your life, listening to your employees, listening to your family, obviously, or hopefully, and listening to the environment and nature. And we have all of these incoming signals all the time. And the most important part of leadership is to be able to process that and listen to understand. So what I'm doing from my perspective as a leader is teaching others to listen and giving that service. So when we talk about being grounded, I think both certainly Damon and Alicia hit on that, is like finding yourself and going back to that last known point and dressing to, Dame, I did the same exact thing. It took me probably longer than you to figure that out, that I couldn't wear sweatpants every day, but simply just getting up and putting on a pants, even if it was jeans, but something that felt like you were going to the office, creates an environment. You're listening to your surroundings. You're listening to how you feel, is how you get out of uncertainty, I think. And the biggest part about whether it's the Carnegie method of looking at ourselves and then others and then the future, is what are we doing in that moment? And it all has to do with listening to understand. So if there's one thing we all walk away with today, it's that it's not just about hearing. Hearing is the noise coming through your ears, but it's listening to understand and listening intentionally for not jumping in. I think this panel's been doing a good job with not jumping in and interrupting each other. But really, what is that person trying to say? And Ziad, you mentioned, I think in your opening remarks, that leadership today is a bit messed up, whether it's on the corporate side, on the political side, wherever, both sides of the aisle. The most interesting thing that we see today, well, it's historically been the case too, is that, for example, in politics, we have debates. We don't have listening sessions. Sometimes we have a town hall here or there, but what's a town hall really about? It's getting people in the town to listen to what the politician has to say. If we could sit down and listen to one another, I think we would find that there's less uncertainty and we actually agree on a lot more things than we came believing that we agreed on, because we are so polarized today, whether it's the news cycles that we find ourselves in, or social media. That's probably the worst thing. Everyone should X out of their social media right now, because that's just selling us on things that everyone else's best fake life. That creates a lot of uncertainty for ourselves. So in conclusion, I would say that listening is the way of the future. It's the way of leadership, and it's the way that we ground ourselves again to move forward.
I agree with you 100%, and I'm sure a lot of the people in the audience do. A lot of people tend to listen to themselves rather than listen to others. That's a big difference. So they talk and talk. It's all about the me, this me culture, this personal culture, all this stuff. So there is a lot of message a lot of the good stuff that's lost out there. I agree with you 100%. It's very wise what you said. Okay, let's go a bit deeper here. So this is pretty much a softball round. I guess we know now who you are, what you think. I think you said very interesting and practical things. Now, what do you expect to see the rest of the year, or at least the next 2 years, with this president in power? I'm not being political here, but this is the current affairs. This is what we're living today. We have a disaster at our hand. We don't have a leader. So a lot of people are scared, are bankrupt, are restless, are frustrated. They don't know how to go about it. They don't even know how to help themselves. A lot of people have been, emasculated, castrated. You can't say anything. You can't react. You just shut up and listen to what the government says, or your corporation says, or your boss says, or this authority. I always rebelled against authority. I cannot accept any authority. My only boss is money. That's my boss. I don't have any other bosses. It's the best boss, believe me, because you work hard for it. He doesn't tell you what to do. You're here trying to embrace him. And that's it. You don't have to account to any guy out there. This is it. I resent authority. I'm a rebel, maverick, contrarian, always have. And I wish more people were like this, because they would resolve all their problems, believe me. And they will wake up and realize that nobody cares about you, not your government, not your corporation, not your boss. They don't give a hoot if you live or die. All this good words and nice words, we want to take care of you, the government will take care of you, it's all bullshit. So you have to be a self-sustaining cash flow machine with a real attitude, with a real winning attitude, like you guys described, you know, to be a winner, to sustain, to survive, and to thrive, because we're not here to survive. People tell you, oh, you should be happy you have a roof on top of your head. This is bullshit, you know, we're here to thrive. So having said that, what do you expect to see the rest of the year? And how are you planning for it? Or the rest 2 years till the end of the Biden mandate? I would appreciate, this is addressed to each one of the panelists, your feedback on that. You know, please, short, crisp, straight to the point. We don't need to beat around the bush here. You can say whatever you want. This is the Financial Policy Council. Nobody's going to cancel us. And this is what we stand for. So the floor is yours. We start with Joe.
I'll start. I honestly believe we're going to get back to community. I think people are going to be more entrepreneurial. They want to have more control in their life. I do agree that there's all this rhetoric, you know, what side of the aisle are you on? You're over here, you're over there, but nobody's getting anything done, in my opinion. Okay. Yeah. And I think that people are going to want to have control in their life, whether they're making a little bit of money, a lot of money, but more in control of not just under the structures of a boss or a corporation. I think that they're going to get back to community. I think community and feeling the realness of people. You know, I'm from the East Coast originally, from Boston, and I think, you know, it's a little different than the West Coast, okay? West Coast, they go, oh, you're so nice. East Coast, they go, I don't like you. You know, like it's just really real. And I think realness is coming back. And I think, you know, somebody commented on social media. You know, I kind of go back and forth with that, because I think we don't give women a reputation to live up to a lot in social media. And I think I get, you know, zeroed in on in marketing. Like I know I do, you know, I get pitted on things. And it has its assets, but it has its downsides. However, I think, you know, with AI and the things that are coming up right now, I think we're going to have a lot of jobs changing. And I think because of that, people are going to want to be able to have something in their hands that's theirs, that they get to decide in their life on. And so that's what I see in the future. You know, I was just here in Vegas, and I just saw a group of people finally come together. We just had one of our in-person meetings right after COVID, and people were coming out of the woodwork. They want connection. They feel disconnected. That's what I see. And I think
that's brilliant. That's brilliant. I appreciate it. Great feedback, Dave. Okay, Joe, go ahead.
Well, I think those are all great comments. I agree with what Dame Stella has said. You know, I tend to think about, because we've got clients all over the world, we've got teams all over the world. The worldview I have is that I've never seen this kind of volatility, you know, uncertainty in the world. I think things are going to continue to become more complex, and there's going to be a lot of instability. And that's at a socio-political level right now for the next, you know, certainly couple of years. Having said that, I also believe that this is a time where maybe there's never been greater opportunity. You know, there's the saying in physics that the law of physics, that every action has an opposite and equal reaction. And if that's true, every crisis has an opposite and equal opportunity. So with all of the dynamic change in the world, whether it's around technology. I mean, we're looking at, in what ways can AI potentially be a game changer in our business and in other businesses, and how do we step up, taking command during time of uncertainty? How do we make sure that we're helping bring out the best in our clients? You said something, Ziad, earlier, which is that leaders make other leaders. That's exactly what we believe. So part of, if people are worried and struggling, then the opportunity for certainly our business and probably for all of us is to try to help bring other people up. How do we help create other leaders? So I think it's going to be an interesting time in the months and years ahead. And if we take command during these times, we can, I think, get through them really well.
I love it. This is very contagious what you're saying. That's good. This is what we want everybody to really feel like a winner, to act like a winner, to work as teams, to build value, etc. Alicia, love to hear your feedback.
Yes, so leave it to me to make a wartime reference, but there's this book, Try, by Sebastian Junger, and one of his quotes, he says, oftentimes the greatest tragedy of war is leaving war, because that's when we are the most bound together as brothers and sisters in camaraderie. And what I think, and what you were describing, is this climate that we're in financially, socially, economically feels like war to a lot of people. And so what we're going to see is people, like Dame said, starting to look for their tribe and identifying with the people that they can relate to, mostly from a values perspective, from a mission perspective. So really finding the tribe of people. I think with what we've seen economically with the markets is that there is actually a lot of money in the world, and that there is really a power shift in terms of who's controlling that. And so I see a lot of opportunity, and I've been spending a lot of time as somebody who's running a venture fund outside of the US and realizing that there's a lot of money, particularly in the UAE. And we're seeing, a lot of throughout the continent of Africa and several other places in Asia, where they're stepping up to the plate and saying, we can be the leaders in innovation. We do want to have access to IP and things that are happening here. So there's a lot of money-making opportunities outside of the US that I believe are available for people here right now. There's a lot of ways to win. So that's where I'm seeing things going, is similar to what Joe said, more of a global economic standpoint. And then paying attention to where people are leading right now in terms of the energy transition. So there's so much opportunity in conversations leading towards finance and opportunity in energy and some of those other areas.
In fact, I agree with you. I believe that there has never been, ever in history, a time where you can make more money than today. With all the classes out there, with all the diversity, and it's growing internationally. Silicon Valley is not anymore the center of entrepreneurship and the center of the world like they think they are. Oasis in the countries are coming all over. Look at Dubai, look at other places. It's all over the place. And the same thing goes for America. Dominance and entrepreneurship is not anymore reserved to the US. It's flourishing all over the world, and that's what we want. And the more you empower people worldwide to do that, the more concentration you have. While the people in the New World Order want exactly the reverse. They want to concentrate everything. We don't want that. Anyway, I'd like to hear from Adi.
It's hard to bat sweep here because everyone's said all the important things already. But I gotta side with Joe here in terms of it's only gonna get more complex. We're in a really bad situation, and I think it's a kind of a narrow perspective to say it's just the White House. I think you see this in leadership around the world. You see it in Congress. You see everywhere. You all three branches of our government, quite frankly, and you see it almost in every government across the world right now. We seem to have polarizing views, and I also agree with what Dame is saying around it's because, well, there's two separate things. First, I think there's polarizing views because we're not listening to each other. And I think also we're not, and I think the thing that people are really seeking at this point, coming out of 3 years of a pandemic, is actually highlighting what was already pre-existed as the largest world epidemic, which is loneliness. And we need to bring people back together in terms of community and connection. And so I think, like everyone else has been saying, we're going to see grassroots efforts that kind of ignore politics and politicians. We're going to see much more worldwide connection. We see it, quite frankly, on our app every day, people speaking from different countries, people connecting, and they're not talking about politics. I will tell you, I have spent a lot of time on the campaign trail in nonpartisan efforts, just, for example, getting out the vote. And what you learn in the middle of, say, rural Alabama or Western PA or California or New Jersey, most people agree on most issues. They just have not been given the opportunity to speak, and no one, certainly in politics, has given them the opportunity to be listened to. And
That's
so
true.
we'll
So
see that come, and it's all going to float up to the top, and communities and groups are going to create on their own so that we can push the efforts that we care about forward.
That's so true. That's so true, Adi. Very, very. Okay, I'd like to conclude my questions and leave it to the audience. I'm sure they have a lot of questions. So, bottom line, in 2-3 minutes, each one of you, what is one specific thing you suggest everyone in this webinar do to take command, of the rest of their year? One specific thing or a couple of things specifically. Let's not talk in general. That's very important. Joe.
So I was going to let someone else go first, but I'm happy to go now. I think with all that we've said, the one thing I would focus on is really committing to my mindset and looking for opportunity. And what that means is, and let me be specific because I don't want to be general. So part of, we're talking about taking command. So I happen to co-author a book called Take Command that has just come out in January, which is a blueprint for how to live and lead and thrive during uncertain times. And the first part of that book, and the challenge we throw down to everybody, is to take command first of our thoughts and emotions. So every one of us, every single day, struggle with ups and downs. We get angry, we get insecure, we get, whatever. But until we take command of ourselves, until I take command of myself and continue to develop even stronger courage and confidence and so forth, I'm not going to be good to anybody. Certainly, I'm leading a company. You're leading companies. I'm doing incredible things, so I need to lead, and you need to lead. And what that means then is we start with ourselves every single day, thinking about our thoughts, thinking about how I'm going to see things in the right way, developing a mindset. And what I'd say, we think about, I like to work out, probably many of you do too. You don't just go to the gym one time and do biceps and say, I'm done. You go, you work out every single day or several times a week in order to build the muscle and the strength. And I think the one thing we can do that's concrete every single day is to work on ourselves and our thoughts and make sure that that we're taking command as we outlined in the book.
Thank you, Joe. Shelley Dave.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Like I said, another blessed day to serve on planet Earth. Here we are. One of the things I do in the morning is I put some music on, I start moving. I start moving not just my thoughts, but my body, my energy. I think it's really important. I think the other thing is, it's an opportunity to look around and go, who do I want to hang out with? Let me pick the people that I want to hang out with and let me reach out to them.
Good. Very good. Very good. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, I think, there's several times in my life I've gotten to do that. And I go, it doesn't mean I have to get rid of my old friends. It just means I get to expand. And so, who do you want to hang out with? Who do you want to hang out with as friends? Who are doing things? Who are growing? Who has the energy? We become like those we're around. So absolutely, I totally agree. It's all about how I start up here. I totally understand human latent programming. I totally believe in it. I know it's real. I know it works. But then it's who is around me, right? Whose energy am I exchanging with? And
I love it.
so that's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Which is exactly what we said before. You become the average of the 6 people closest to you.
Yes.
Alicia?
Oh, I couldn't get off mute to save my life. That was stressful. So For me, this is pretty simple. It all comes down to a values conversation. Like I said with last no point, this climate that we're in right now, we're going to find ourselves saying, how the heck did I get here? And the only way we're going to keep ourselves on track is in really understanding what our core values are and refusing to waver from those things. When we do that, like you said, it's going to attract the right people into our lives in the right situations. The second thing my mom would always say to me was, shoot for the moon. And even if you miss, you'll land amongst the stars. And so two things there with that. One, I thought my mom was giving me permission to dream. What I realized she was doing was giving me permission to fail. So that moon that we're shooting for, be really bullish and really specific on that big, audacious goal that you have for yourself for this year. And then when you miss that mark, because oftentimes we will, be okay with that. Give yourself permission to fail, because that's where the magic and the true innovation happens. And the third thing that I just want to say is, don't be afraid to ask for help. We have to be okay with asking for what we want first and foremost, and being able to ask for help getting us to the next level of wherever it is that we want to go.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alicia. Adi?
So usually, Ziad, when this question is asked, I just leave with a zinger of listen more. But you asked to expand on it, so I will expand on it. And it's probably the most awkward advice is go out and find someone you don't know and sit and speak with them. Well, listen to them, let them speak to you. And it can be a stranger. There's a lot of research. One of our academic advisors out of the University of Chicago has published for the last 20 years on this. We are exponentially satisfied beyond our expectations by listening to strangers. Strangers talking to strangers is one of the best psychological effects that you can have. It's the classic, airplane experiment, right? Where you fly next to someone, literally shoulders to shoulder for 5 hours, and you don't talk to them. And then the last 5 minutes, right as you're on the tarmac, you have an amazing conversation. Like, what were we doing for the last 5 hours? And so I just highly recommend that you try this. And then also try it in your personal relationships, in your work relationships, is pause and don't interrupt. And even leave a few extra seconds, count to 5 in your head, and really let those thoughts sink in. Now, I want to remind you, just like everyone else was saying, like Joe was saying about exercising, this is a practice. Listening and like exercise is a practice, and you need to do it time. And again, you can't just take, say, the Happy Academy course and become an expert listener. You need to try it. So it's going to be awkward the first few times you do it, or the first few years, but you will see how the tenor of a conversation changes when you simply listen to understand versus listening to respond.
Fantastic. Well, guys, this has been amazing. I'd like to leave the questions to the audience. Hiba, if you could go over some of the questions, or preferably all of them, but no, I'm sure you're going to be selective. And we can move forward.
Yes, actually, I will give them some time to submit their questions. So basically, Herman, want to make a statement?
By the way, as I said in the invite, we're not here to share people's emails or phone numbers, etc. This will come in due time. This is not a place, a forum to exchange emails and phone numbers at this point in time, except for the panelists, which we will talk later. Go ahead, Hugo.
Yes, Herman would like to add something.
Yes, hi. Can everyone hear me? I'm just checking my voice. Yes, thank you. What I want to say is this: I'm a global person here. I'm a global facilitator. Now, what I've been finding out from different people making different statements to me from around the planet. I'm in Hong Kong, I'm in Singapore, London, Switzerland, and here in the United States. They all have the basic fear of not being able to expand. Now, what I tell them, you got to know the why. That's the one thing you got to ask yourself in your life.
Excuse me.
Why am I in this situation?
Excuse me. This is not for comments. This is for questions. You're not here to give comments. If you're going to hear a comment from everyone, we will not finish, and we will have no questions. So please respect the time and stay.
Okay, I'll respect the time. I'll take a pass. I was trying to offer help to people that need help. No problem. I'll take a pass. Thank you. Next.
Question, Herman. Okay.
Look, at the end of the day, guys, we're here to address tough questions and to find solutions for those questions. if we're not here to comment, there's going to be another venue where you can comment, interact, etc. This is to address questions. We are a think tank. We're here to propose. This is what the problems are today on every single level, and this is the solutions our panelists and experts will provide. This is how you learn, by answering, by providing solutions, not by each one showing how important he is or connected he is or who he is. This is not a forum for that. This is a forum to provide solutions, just to set the record straight, and everybody will benefit much more by doing that, because I'm sure you have a lot of questions, and we have a great opportunity here to meet with 4 top panelists and experts who can address these questions.
Yes.
Just to set the record straight. Go ahead, Eva.
Yes, Stanford is asking, considering the influence of advancements such as GPT, the metaverse, and the resurgence of transformative Marxist ideology on the younger generation, how can contemporary leaders cultivate future leaders who can harness, sorry, one second, it's a long question, one second, can harness the potentials of the 4th industrial revolution while also counterbalancing the shift towards left-leaning ideologies in America?
Stanford, please do me a favor, stick to shorter questions, Go ahead.
All right, I have a question, another question from Tim. I know that last known point, sorry. Okay, what last known point is in the military terms, but I would like to know what Alicia meant in doing this in her personal life. How did that actualize? This is for Alicia, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, hi. Okay, so this is a great question. So as I mentioned, I lost my mother very tragically, which was a huge shock to me. And it was the first time in my life, personally and professionally, I found myself saying, I'm completely lost. And it was in that moment of being really lost and honestly really depressed that I heard my drill sergeant's voice. So back to listening, I heard my drill sergeant's voice replay in my mind saying, do you remember what it means to find your last known point? At this moment, I didn't realize that I would be going back to my military roots, but I took that out of the military into the point now and said, when was the last place I didn't feel lost anymore? And at the time for me, that was my military career, because I felt like I belonged to a team. So I had a sense of belonging and I didn't have the sense of loneliness. I knew exactly what my job was every day. So I was really clear on what my mission was. I lived and operated by a core sense of values that essentially operated as a compass for every interaction that I had. So how last known point applies to our lives today is really just an exercise in finding those core values. And if anybody needs help with this, I'm happy to help with this, share resources on how I came to understand my core values, and then understanding what my essentially North Star was, or what points and direction I was heading with myself personally, with the people in my life, and also professionally where I needed to go. So really mapping out where I was going the next 6 months, 12 months, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, and then refusing to move on what those values were that was for me. And so this in practice is when you find yourself getting lost, it's often because we've come outside of what our mission is and we're not operating within our values. We found ourselves somewhere different. So going back to that last place where you truly felt like yourself, and sometimes it's really hard to find that, and that's the work as well.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you.
Another
next question, please, Hiba.
Yes. How will AI, artificial intelligence, and efforts like ChatGPT change the nature of leadership?
Okay, and this is addressed to whom? Anybody specifically?
No, it's just.
I can take. I'm happy to take it because we're actually experimenting with AI and ChatGPT right now in our company. I don't think it changes the human skills. It empowers the human skills, and we need to know the limits of the technology. But it's like any other technology. It might change certain jobs. It will probably, like everyone thought the computer was going to get rid of jobs and actually create a massive economy. I think we'll see that happen in some capacities, but I will tell you on a daily basis, ChatGPT has been in our limited, in my limited use as an executive, quite helpful. Like if I need to, even let's say write an article, and it used to take 3 days to write an article. Now I can get a basis for an article with the research. I ask it cite sources to write the stem of an article for me. And then I will go back and rewrite it with stats and facts and my own quotes. But it just makes my life that, writing I'm not a journalist. I'm not a writer. That's not what I'm looking to do, but it's important for a business to get that kind of stuff out there. And so it's really shortened my time on what I would say peripheral tasks. On the other side of it, we're seeing massive uses for it, certainly in coding and engineering. You can have it build you an app overnight. But again, it lacks creativity. It's very good at binary, literally, computer language and building out to the rules that you set. But if you want to have the app look exactly like what you want, you're going to have to sit still with designers and creativity and do it. And the last thing, which is probably the most interesting for many people here from the leadership perspective, or certainly from the emotional intelligence perspective. So whether it's what Dame is talking about in terms of attitude every day, or what Joe is saying in terms of intentionality and leadership, we have found that ChatGPT, and we're not the only ones experimenting from this perspective, is not emotionally intelligent, and it screws up a lot. So, let's take the most serious example, which would be something like suicidal ideation. If you test it 1,000 times, you will often find that it makes silly examples like, hey, I want to kill myself. And it will say, have you tried recycling electronics to feel better? It's like that doesn't even make sense, but it found some script that it suggested you feel better when you recycle electronics. So what we're doing is taking, for example, all of our recordings are 1.5 million minutes of emotionally intelligent conversation and training a new bot that could become the gold standard. And what that does is that gives you a space. We also don't think that will replace human conversation, but what it does, it gives you a space that's in addition, adjunctive care, and another support where you can feel that you're connecting with something in a more human way. And so for all those people who don't have access to therapy, or might even not have access to even our listeners, you might still be able to get support of feeling connected. It's a weird thing to say, but with ChatGPT, but it has to be trained in the right way.
I would like to add a couple of things on this, on the subject matter. And I wrote a blog about this on LinkedIn recently. I think this whole thing is very dangerous. And if you don't know what you're doing, because at the end of the day, who's going to control this AI? It's going to be controlled by humans. And if they can control it, if it gets to a point where it cannot be controlled anymore, like, somebody wrote an article on, anybody can write an article on a subject, and you ask ChatGPT or some AI software to write something, they use references of books that don't exist. The same thing with COVID. Fauci came in, he's the expert, he's the scientist, he's the genius. Look what this led us to. Well, the same thing with AI. You can create something, this is it, or it's the Bible. It is AI who said this. These are supposedly the smartest people. And think about it when you apply this to some foreign policy, geopolitics, or climate change, or all this crap. It's control. If it's controlled by a progressive movement that puts this in your mind, oh, it's AI who said this. We got it from the best source, from the references, who take as references books that don't exist, studies that don't exist, because they have in mind to control your mind and to control your future. So it's very dangerous. I'm not at all. And then why would an 18-year-old, I've been writing for 30 years, tons of stuff. Why would an 18-year-old guy now be my equal? Because he used AI and he's a damn moron who doesn't know nothing, because he's skillfully a technologist who use AI. What? Now it's a great equalizer. I'm equal to this moron who used AI for that. It has huge implications, repercussions, inequalities, bullshit, because of use AI, and everybody's running AI, like everybody's running. Fauci, he's a genius. People are such a cheap, seduced by all these technologies and thinking without even thinking. No more critical thinking. If you say this, what I'm saying, or think like this, you're dangerous. You cannot do that because you don't fit the mold, because you don't fit the box. Hey, guys, let's have critical thinking. Attitude, I agree with Dame Shelley. Knowing what we do, I agree. But, we have to have real critical thinkers. If not, you have no idea where you are being led to. No idea. It's a disaster. Like social media, Facebook is going to get people closer together. Well, today, as you said, Adi, or somebody, they're getting more and more distant together. Social media did not connect the people. They connect them superficially. They don't want to meet anybody anymore. They don't want to listen to their opinion. So let's beware all this technology crap and all this brainwashing. It's another way for the New World Order to take control and to control your mind and your destiny and everything because of a sexy technology called AI. Give me a break.
Ziad, I'll just add one thing.
Can I add something?
Yeah, let me just 1 second,
Yeah,
Alicia.
Okay.
I have an example of, and you're absolutely right. It's the layer on top. I think there's a lot of power to the technology. We might disagree on that, but it's when you lose control of it. And even years before we were talking about ChatGPT, Amazon designed an HR platform that was doing their initial sorting of applications. And what they noticed was that it was racist. And they couldn't, and one of the reasons it was racist, well, no offense to those people sitting in the room, but it was trained by white middle-aged men, right? Yeah. And so that's how it was thinking. And they had no idea, Amazon had no idea how to change the AI. So ultimately they just had to decommission the entire machine. And that, of all the things you said, Ziad, that's probably the most important in this, is the warning that the machine can be very powerful to an extent. And then we have to realize that it's not human.
I mean, the machine definitely has value, but it depends how we use it, for what purpose. I mean, can you imagine conducting a foreign policy based on a machine?
No.
Where we can talk about nuclear bombs and millions of people dying because of a machine? Anyway, I'd like to hear.
Yeah, Alicia, sorry, I rudely interrupted you because I wasn't listening.
No, it's okay. I'd like to hear Alicia.
Yeah, thank you. I just think, listening to what both of you are saying, I'm a firm believer that all good things become weaponized eventually. And this is something where we're seeing, like you said, can be very powerful, is very powerful, and can be very dangerous. But how are we training it? How do we have the awareness? And if we know that this is going to be weaponized, how are we potentially using this in our favor? And so it wasn't just Amazon who had racist AI, it was Google, and Google did a lot of work and is still working to a lot of the racist AI that exists. We are, from a venture capital standpoint, weaponizing ChatGPT and AI in our favor in a lot of ways, where we're training this to do diligence in a way that eliminates bias that we just simply cannot get over as human beings. So how do we take between the 25,000 entrepreneurs we worked with, top investments, and train ChatGPT to essentially score and mark investments so we can show likelihood of better return? So it's like, how do we, if we're all motivated by our big boss, which is money, take something that's this powerful and use it in our favor, but understanding that it isn't human and that we need to be careful as well.
Absolutely, Alicia. Okay, Hiba, next question, please.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Dame, you want to say something?
I do, because, there's part of AI that terrifies me. Like, the movie Terminator, and I've been joking about it. I sat there, with a gentleman who's one of the top in AI, and my daughter came over and she said, "Don't talk to my mom about that. She thinks the Terminator's coming." And he looked at me in all sincerity and said, "Because it is." Okay. And that was like years ago. Yeah. And so, I look at it in twofold. I go, wow, this could totally get out of control. But then I see the other side, which is you can have books. That doesn't make you have wisdom.
Yeah.
So you can read something, but having experienced it and understand it can be a total different game changer. So I totally agree with you on that. I mean, you can have a lot of data and no knowledge, no wisdom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfectly agree. Hiba, go ahead, move.
Yes. What is the role in remote work to uplift people around the world, not just financially, but on all levels?
I'm happy to talk about that. We've done a lot of work and research around remote work. And there are clearly opportunities and there's clearly challenges. The opportunity, certainly from an individual standpoint, to have the sense of more autonomy is something that, and more productivity potentially. I was living for a long time in New York outside of Manhattan, and I know a lot of people who were happy about not having to spend 2 hours each way commuting in and out of the office. I'm able to repurpose some of that time, both personally and professionally. The challenge I think the businesses have, and I've talked to lots of executives about this, is how do you create culture? How do you, especially as many people have been onboarded into companies and they've not even met any of those people in person over the last few years. So, and you've got empowered employees who are expecting more from their companies, expecting to be invested in and trained and to have transparency in the business and so forth. So, the opportunity really around remote work is like anything else, to use it in a way that does connect people. And by the way, and you can, so, in our organization, we're very intentional about reaching out to people. We don't have the kind of social ties if you're not in office and so forth. So reaching out with people, as Addie would say, listening to people, asking, how are you doing? What can I do to help? We start our executive team meetings often, with just a few minutes of good news. What's good? What's happening in your life, personally or professionally? So on our Monday morning, touch base with my executive team, people are sharing pictures of, their kids' first communion over the weekend, or, something else like that. So I have found our team, even working remotely, has gotten a lot more connected. But the challenge is, again, especially for leaders in the business and CEOs, is you've got to be really intentional. What kind of culture do I want? What are the things that I need to do? How do I make people feel connected? How do I truly connect with people? Because again, going back to what Eddie said, one of the challenges of the pandemic is loneliness. And, so I think there's great opportunity. And one last point I'd say too is around talent pools. It used to be, if you had to go into a physical office, that you're drawing from a talent pool and a geography. Now, we're mostly virtual. We hire from people from all over the world. That creates opportunity for them and for us to find, greater talent, and for people who might not otherwise have an opportunity to do that. So I think this is contributing to really a dynamic and positive part of the workplace if people remember kind of the humanity, and that we got to connect with each other, and we've got to, invest and bring out the best in each other, and not just, have online meetings.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Much appreciated. Go ahead, Hiba.
More question, yeah. What are 3 must-do things people can do to get themselves in the right mindset every day?
Anyone of the panelists?
Yeah,
I can answer this one.
Go ahead,
Make your bed. Yes, somebody said make your bed. That's Admiral McRaven has a book called Always Make Your Bed. That's a great start. Start your day with the task complete, he says. I think something that changed my life, and for a lot of the high net worth individuals or professional athletes I worked with, something that changed their life as well is gratitude. We are oftentimes moving so fast, and oftentimes our inner monologue, the things we say to ourselves, gets the best of us. So if you can start each morning with just, you don't have to meditate, that's hard, with 5 breaths of gratitude, and just simply think of 5 things you're grateful for, that's going to automatically get your mind thinking in a way of the positive. And what you'll discover is over time, you will actually rewire your brain. Instead of seeing obstacles, you will see opportunities just by training your mind to be more positive. I think drinking water is one of the most overlooked things that we do, drink water. And then I'm going to say again, make your bed, start a day with the task complete, and just get out and move and breathe and get in the sunshine if you can.
I love it. Pure and simple. Very military. I love it. Go ahead, Murba.
one more question, 1 second, sorry. Somebody was just adding social media killed the grad reunions and town hall dances. We are swinging back in the other direction where people are desperately craving connection post-COVID mandates. But this is just his opinion. I think it's not a question. One more, that's it, I think. Because some are sharing just their opinion. Would you like me to just?
No, I don't want to hear your opinion. We're
Or-
only here to share questions, to share feedback, to learn from each other. If I'm going to hear everybody's opinion, we have what, 60 people here, 60 opinions?
Okay, there's just one more. What do you see as the most important change in our expectations of our leaders over the past few years? What do people want now that may not have been important even 10 years ago?
Look, I'd like to answer this, okay? I don't understand why people, when they want to scratch their ear, they do it this way instead of doing this way. Why all this complexity? Who cares what your leaders want? Okay, leaders, all these people in governments work for us. We don't work for them. We pay their salaries. You know, this thing has to be pushed back. We have to reverse this process. People are today too shy to state what they want, too shy to push back, too shy to state their opinion, too shy to write about it. So now they become cheap. There is a war today. There is a war between, I mean, you can be an observer or you can be a player. There's a war between the wealth takers and the wealth creators. There's a war. It's all about controlling your money, power, business, everything. They come up with anything to control you. This is reality. I'm not paranoid. I'm not a conspiracy theory. I'm the most practical, down-to-earth guy out there. There's a war. People are in denial. They don't want to push back. They're afraid to lose their job. They have to shut up, watch TV, don't dissent, agree with what the government says, etc. Stop asking what they're going to do. I don't care what they want to do. We will need to create a movement, and this is what the Financial Policy Council is all about, to push back. Like the World Economic Forum is pushing back on the left, we want to push back on the right. We want our rights. We're looking for freedom, patriotism, wealth creation, all that kind of stuff. There's nothing wrong in that. They make you feel like this is bad to think like this. You are a rebel. Well, look at the creation of this country. The renegades, the 56 founding fathers, they were all renegades. They were all aggressive. They all wanted something. They pushed back. If not, today we would be the UK, Britain, if they didn't push back. All those people pushed back. When they talk about attitude, yes, people today are afraid to have an attitude. Oh, I can't do this. I'm going to be canceled. Oh, what is my leader is going to say? There's this culture. They built such a fortress around them that they control everything, they own everything. Maybe they do, but it's time to push back. I'm sick and tired of hearing all these people, you know, just like, it's unbelievable. Emasculated, no opinion, no nothing, just comply, comply, comply. Comply, you will never be happy, you will never make money, you will never be opinionated, you will never achieve anything in life. It's time to wake up. We are $35 trillion in debt. Everything has been shut down, dismantled. Even, I mean, everything is upside down. Everything that should be done is not done. Everything that should not be done is done. And people still don't react. I am shocked by the apathy in this country. I'm a legal immigrant. I came here 30 years ago. I had nothing. I did it by the sheer force of my character. And you know what? People here are too lazy to do anything. They don't react. As long as they're entertained, they keep you entertained with their bullshit, with the TVs and the drugs, or they keep you entertained. And away, just shut up, don't obey. I'm the master. The elite of what? What are the elite of? What did they do to be such elite? Because you give them the opportunity to be an elite. I'm sick and tired of this. This is why we're pushing back at the Financial Policy Council. We're not going to be canceled. We're going to push back. we're going to create an army of people who think like that, who are patriotic and who get things done. Enough. What are the leaders going to say? I don't give a shit what the leaders are going to say. They mean nothing to me. They paid by me. They work for me, for us. We don't work for them. So enough of this attitude. Take the right attitude, as Dame said. Yes, this is the attitude you're going to take. Fighters, winners, wealth creators, opinionated, to take back our country, to take back our lives. That's what it is. We have to turn this, reverse this thing, this blockage in our mind. We're blocked. We don't think anymore. There's no more critical thinking. I'm sick and tired of it. And if anybody gets upset of this, you know, leave. He's a wimp. I don't want to deal with people like this. I want to deal with killer, sharks, winners, patriots, freedom fighters, people who want to make things happen, who want to empower people, who want to change the world, who want to be game changers, who have lots of energy. If you don't have this, get lost. There's 7 billion people in the world. I'm not running for office. I'm not running for politics, neither the Financial Policy Council. We're a think tank movement that's here to make a dent. If not, we're like any other non-profit. We're fiercely independent. We're not backed by any PAC, any interest group, no left, no right. Neither the left nor the right. We cannot be bought and sold. We will not be bought and sold. We will not be bullied in thinking a certain way. We're doing these events to empower people, to inspire people, to wake the fuck up, to make a difference. And we're going to keep doing that forever. Anybody who believes in that, join us, and we'll all be much bigger, much more powerful, much more influential, much more impactful for the benefit of this country. We're not here to make money, Financial Policy Council. It's a non-profit. I'm here to make money. Each one of us, the members, are capitalists who are here to make money, to create wealth, to create freedom, prosperity. We're not here to make money. We don't want your money. We want your support. We want you to be more voiceful. I don't want to do a speech, but you know what? I'm sick and tired of what will the leaders say. Screw them and what they think. And this is going to be on video, and I don't care if they hear it. You think I care? Enough is enough.
Ziad, can we take questions before we give the floor to the panelists to share their remarks, their final?
Yes, please, go ahead. I would like to, please, go ahead, Eva.
There is another question from Michael. How do you frame your perspective to profit from an economic downturn?
Look, I mean, this is not the subject of this. This topic is about leadership. We'll be more than happy to address this topic in a different forum. And we're going to be doing lots of forum like this. This topic, this forum, let's be specific, is about leadership. Mm-hmm. So I don't think making money or asking these experts on leadership to about how you're going to create wealth in an environment like this. I'll be more than happy to address this along with lots of members of the Financial Policy Council in another venue, with all due respect.
Okay, one more question. As a business expert on the panel, how do you see business leaders helping connect and save our universities from weak leadership and the social justice infection?
And this question is for who? For me?
This is it should be for you if you wish. It's from David Bray, Dr. David Bray.
Yes, David. Hi, David. Well, I tell you, I mean, most of these very wealthy people, business people, are liberal. Okay, so you cannot change their mind. The key, and you cannot change their mind, not in a million years. Even if you pay them money, which they don't need, you cannot change them. So the key is to change the mind, change the minds, lift up and empower this younger generation who's starting their life at the cusp of starting to make money. You have to go to the grassroots. The old system is not working. You have to go, you cannot keep fighting, as Adi said. You have to listen. You know, you have to listen what they say. Young generation is totally lost. Why? Number one, there is no financial education. They know nothing about finance. You know, they learn algebra, geometry, which is all bullshit, and chemistry, which is not going to do anything for them. Second, they are taught by their parents that they are so special. They always, their parents say, tell them, oh, you're so special, you're so smart, you're so unique. Nothing is unique to them until they prove it. So they come to the workforce, they're fed all this information from their parents that you're so geniuses, you know, which they're not for the majority of them. And they have no financial education. So they face the workforce, they face reality. There's no job, there's no opportunities, there's nothing. So they resort to socialism. Nobody's teaching them about the concept of wealth creation, about accommodation, about how you fit in society, how you do that kind of stuff. This is our job. This is the job of Joe and his team, Dame, Alicia, all of the job for us to educate them, to empower them, to lift them up. So you have to, you cannot go after the actual regime. You have to go and nurture the younger generation, which if you don't do 15, 20 years from now, they're all going to be socialist, and they're going to be one party, one socialist party, one communist party, and you're done. The United States is done. The education starts as of today, and not just theoretical education, but practical education. You know, how you really, we're going to have classes, we're going to train them. Are we going to start a partnership with a major grassroots college organization that has 15,000 colleges? We're going to educate them, provide them with the tools. We have a big job to do. It's going to take a lot of years. Don't expect to change anybody whose ideas are already, lodged. This is it. You cannot change them, but you can change the future because their minds are here to be molded, to learn. The same way they brainwash them in these liberal colleges and schools as to the benefits of socialism, which has none. You know, the same thing, you have to reverse this. That's my opinion. The education, the future, the young generation, the tools, they have none of this.
Can we take one more question, Ziad?
Yes, one last.
The subject of what's happening in the world and referencing the dearth of leadership in the USA, is leadership conducted differently elsewhere?
Well, this is up to the panelists who are the leadership experts. I think Joe had to leave us because he had a family emergency, but I leave it to Dame Adi and Alicia to respond to that. Let's start with Dame.
Great. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Let me get back to it. The subject of what's happening in the world and referencing the dearth of leadership in the US. Is leadership conducted differently elsewhere?
Okay. As in the rest of the world, is that the idea here? Okay, great. You know, there's positive leaders, there's negative leaders, and there's game players, man. And I'm just going to say it. There's a lot of game players out there in the world. I do believe that. I also do believe, because with Women in Global Change, I have seen leaders around the world, and I don't believe leaders are assigned, leaders rise. Leaders rise.
Exactly.
You know, and so, you know, I think you look long enough, you're going to find good and bad everywhere. I mean, I know that sounds kind of rough, but it's kind of true to me. I've seen some great leadership in other areas and some bad leadership, but I do think in the US, you know, and one of the things you did say, I totally agree with this, with the kids and really how they're raised and the next generation of what we're bringing up. But I do think in regards to leadership, really, I think here in the United States, I don't know, I'm American, you know, and I feel like, and I have Lebanese roots and Syrian roots, but I feel like
Lebanese roots? Oh my God.
I do. My mom
We're
was
gonna be very
100%.
good friends here.
Yes, my mom was 100%. It's the only thing I can cook, but that's,
Okay,
but I
okay,
do
good.
believe
So sorry
in,
to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
that's okay. That's okay. But I truly do believe that, you know, we have the ability to be an example. I do. And I think we're going to be very picky about how we choose our leaders, you know, because really, honestly, it's kind of funny at the end of the day. And you said it, do they really care about me?
No.
Do they really care about me? And at the end of the day, do I really care about them? I care about, right? And
Yeah,
you said it.
absolutely.
I really got that point. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from Alicia, who has maybe a very, good pulse on this, being in the military and stuff like that. That's for sure.
Yeah, so I think nobody invests more in terms of millions of dollars training leaders like the military or like professional sports organizations. So I think if you want to look for places that have the best pockets of leadership, look for places who have really strong militaries and also who have really strong performing professional sports teams. And you'll usually find great leaders, not only in positions of power, but in the communities as well. I mentioned the Middle East several times today, just because I've been spending a lot of time in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, but we're seeing a lot, especially in Dubai, that there are more women now in leadership positions than I believe most other countries around the world. So I think also looking for governments who empower and support women in leadership and business, looking for organizations who are putting women on their boards, and looking for people who really value diversity. I think that's one of the biggest shifts. And to answer some of the other questions that were coming through about race and social justice and all these other things, what we're really getting to is how do we create equity across the board? And we're starting to see that more and more here in this country with celebrating diversity as a good leadership skill. So I do think that leadership means different things in different parts of the world. And a lot of that has to do with understanding the cultural norms. So if you are looking for potentially understanding leadership in various places of the world, start to understand the culture of that community or country that you're looking at. And that will usually define what leadership looks like there and what they value in terms of leadership in those various places. But as an American, I would say, and because we have strong military and strong professional athletes, you do see so many examples of that leadership leading here. If anybody's looking for some great resources on how to be a better leader, Simon Sinek has a few really great books. He has one called Leaders Eat Last. There's also a book called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, I believe, that are great books on leadership and how to lead teams better.
Thank you so much, Alicia. Thank you so much. That was really very nice. Okay, last but not least, Ali.
Yeah, so I think that across the board in every country, and we see it here in America, at the top of every government, to run for office, you have to be certifiably insane and a bit narcissistic. And I'm not saying I'm not considering that in the future, but anyone in the highest levels of power got there because they believe that they were the best, especially in any electoral system. And so running for office is a full-time job. And then for most of the jobs in the US, once you get into that position, you basically spend your entire career running for office again. And it's just crazy to think that that's your entire job, is to hold that office. So, and you see that across the board in every country, especially where places claim to be democracies, is when you get to the top, it's because you run a really good campaign. You convinced other people that you're a good leader. Where I think we see a lot of really good leadership in many countries is those mid-level managers. Let's just take America, for example, is that municipalities, often states, state senates, for example, you are going to get a lot of people who are really committed to the people and to society. And that's where we should start looking for younger, better, more influential, and help them rise to the top, as opposed to letting the same people. The worst thing that you can have in any leadership system is no term limits. And we're seeing that across the board in countries. And many countries, they are really good at recycling. And by that, I mean recycling their politicians. So we need to allow new leadership to rise to the top, and we need to look at the grassroots levels for that. And to what Alicia was saying as well, is that you can often see this in business leadership, in sports leadership, and in the military, when the military leaders are not corrupt. And I think America does a pretty good, I mean, like when we see our own military arresting intelligence officers, that's a really great thing. And so that when there are checks and balances, systems work really well. And so to look to other governments around the world that really don't have a problem arresting and indicting their top leaders is also, I think, an example actually of good leadership. Whatever happens with the trial on the other hand is, none of our business right now, but the fact that a country would let that happen is a good sign of a healthy democracy. So that's
great, Ali. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm sorry?
One final question from Josh. Can I share it? Final.
Fine. As long as it's not a long-winded comment.
No, what role does trust play in overcoming uncertainty today? As a successful leader, can you give us a method you've used to develop a high trust teams?
I can answer that a little bit, maybe.
Go ahead, Dave.
It's people being successful in their lane. Okay. Not expecting everybody to do anything. Find where they're really good. People want to win. Let them win. Let them lead in their lane and stay in their lane. And that's where the trust comes in. I trust you to be here. This is what you're good at. You trust me to be here. This is what I'm good at. You're over here. And you know what? Sometimes they kind of intercross a little bit, but for the most part, they know their lane and they can win, and they stay there. And that develops, I have found with me that, especially having an international organization, it really has developed trust amongst each other. One of the other things is we have been virtual for like 12 years. I had remote workers for at least 12 years now. And so how do they win? They stay in their lane. They lead in their lane. We trust each other. One of the other things that I do is I will bring my team to the table as leaders. And I will say, okay, this is how this is going to work. How I showed up being that was great was blah, blah, blah. How I showed up being that I'm going to be working on is blah, blah, blah. And we don't critique each other, but we're brutally honest on the table.
Thank you, Dave.
That brings trust.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dave. Alicia, you want to elaborate on that a bit?
Sure. I think building trust is really simple. It's you have to know that the other person has your back and that they have yours. So how you can build this really simply is just doing what you say you're going to do. Extreme accountability, extreme ownership, not being afraid to apologize. And like I'm sure Adi would say is listen, seek to understand versus seeking to be heard.
Thank you, Alicia. Adi?
Alicia got it. Listen more. And that's like the everyday thing. I would say just in my own experience too, on the practical side, spend concentrated time together. And it works with smaller teams. When you get to like, even 100 people, it's hard to start doing all hand offsites or whatever. But I mean, there's a reason why the NASA space crews and militaries go hiking together. When you spend time in the backcountry, quite frankly, when you start talking about poop together, then you have a strong team. And so when you can actually have those experiences that are out of office, out of work experiences, you're listening to one another, you're cooking food together, you're being human together, that's how you develop trust among one another.
Brilliant. Okay, I'd like to end up with the closing remarks. 2 minutes from each of the panelists would be appreciated, and then we can close. Thank you very much. We start with Dane.
Okay.
Big remarks, Dane.
Final remarks?
Yeah.
I would say final remarks is, you're a born leader. Everyone has the capabilities. Leaders are not assigned. Stop waiting for somebody to pick you. Get up off your butt and go. You're not here to play small. You're here to play big. You have a grand vision for a reason. And, you know, people aren't here to be alone. We didn't get put on the face of this planet to try to figure it all out by ourselves. We truly are meant to work together, you know, and start your day off. Think about what you're thinking about, plan it out, start moving. And you know what? The other thing is, if you make a mistake, one of the best things about making a mistake is you make a mental note. You don't freaking dwell on it. You don't dwell on it. I dwell on the successes. That work, duplicated. Oh, that was bad. Okay, mental note. Next. So
Brilliant.
you win. Yes. So that's
Love
my
it.
fun.
Brilliant. Brilliant, Dave. Brilliant. Okay, Alicia.
Yeah, so for me, what I would say, I think we spend so much time talking about goats in this country, like being the greatest of all time. And something I always say is, I don't want to be the goat. I want to be the grass that feeds the goats. And that's the eternal goat, the infinite goat. And for me, that's leadership. It's how do we create others who are the greatest of all time? And our vehicle for doing that with Dear Mama is we're a venture fund, and we invest in the next generation of innovators who are the best of the best out there that we can help encourage, build trust around, invest in to be the best. And I think leadership principles that are really important, something that comes to mind is an African proverb that goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And this is an amazing opportunity. Like we were saying, this is a think tank. We can come together vulnerably, openly, share ideas, get a different perspective that opens up our eyes and our mind to things we might not have known or thought about before. This is the way that we elevate ourselves as leaders, and this is the way that we become those infinite goats.
Thank you so much, Alicia. Very, very well. Adi, I'm sorry, Adi, you always come last. But
It's okay. I've been last my entire life, and it still works. So
I like that.
I want to leave everyone with a challenge, not necessarily a lesson, which is go out there and find someone you brutally disagree with and try to sit with them and have a conversation. It can be disagreeing about doing the dishes in your house, or it can be disagreeing about, who should be the next president of the United States, or about Middle East politics. Just sit with someone and try to listen to their entire perspective with, one, emotionally not getting offended by it, two, not responding, and three, being able to take it all in before you continue the conversation. And you will learn.
Wise.
Yeah, that's it. You'll learn that you can have a conversation with anyone if you listen to understand instead of listening to respond.
Thank you so much for your time, all of you. Our next webinar.
Did he freeze?
Yes.
Taking one out for coffee.
Yeah.
We came in here.
Oh.
And we can take it from there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
everyone.
you. And looking forward to your participation in our next webinar, guys. Beautiful.